everyone, Screaming Geek Media here. I am Jerry the Geek. Today we are going to talk about building a home theater, what you might want to get into. But before we get into that, if you like physical media, 4Ks, Blu-rays, even DVDs, like home theater movies in general, please check out my other videos on my channel because I do these different discussions. I do reviews, I do unboxings, I do collection updates every month, what I watch. So check that stuff out, see what you like. Hit the like button, subscribe, and turn your bell notifications on. So today we're going to talk about something. I've been planning this for probably the last 3 months, and I just putting it off and collecting notes here and there, but finally getting around to it. And I wanted to talk about, building a home theater. I mean, are you getting into it just now, building it from scratch? Or do you have a nice TV and a sound bar and you're looking to get into the full audio setup? Or do you have a complete setup or just looking to upgrade a couple components here or there? So I wanted to, give my thoughts, maybe help you steer you in the right direction. Because I've been in home theater for about 31 years. I got my first setup back in 1994. I had a basic 27-inch tube TV. And went out and got a nice little home theater system and a Harman Kardon receiver, JBL speakers, which, the mains were, the left and rights were big tower speakers, and the center was kind of small, and surrounds were small bookshelves. And of course, remember at the time, Dolby Digital didn't exist yet. It was still just Dolby Pro Logic. So it's pretty cool to see where I started and to what I have now. Over the years, I slowly, piece by piece, I was like, man, I want a bigger center channel. I got a new center channel. I replaced it a couple different times. And then I replaced the mains about probably three different times. Surrounds I kept bumping up. Funny thing is, as I was replacing the mains, I would bump those back to the surround, so I was getting full range surround. So I kept doing that until I got to my final setup. My second receiver was a Harman Kardon. It actually had, it was after they upgraded Dolby Digital. But at the time, they had a couple different models. One, they had Dolby Digital built in, and the other one was, it was actually an external processor. At that time, it was basically, the purist out there for better audio, you wanted separates. So I opted for the receiver that did not process it. I got a standalone processor that did Dolby Digital and DTS. And then my third receiver, which is what I still have today, is a Denon. I bought it in 2007, and it is still kicking ass. I bought it when I upgraded to high def for Blu-ray and HD DVD. So yeah, that receiver's still kicking today. Doesn't have Atmos, but I'm okay with that because I don't have a setup for Atmos. So kind of rambling off. Sorry. Basically, I wanted to, being as much as I've been around it, I'll be a first to admit I'm no expert. But I think as long as I've been around this, I could advise you, tell you what I like. And plus, I'll give you links below if you want to check out other brands, certain things. I want to steer you in the right direction if you're looking for certain things. I hate to see someone buy something that they're not going to like, and then after a while, they're going to, man, I could have got better. So I want to help you in that part. Over the years, I've helped a lot of friends back home set up their systems. It was always fun. And even I actually got to help set up an audio store one time. The local guy, he was opening a new store in another town, and he asked me if I wanted to go over and help set it up. And I was like, oh, shit, yes. I was like a kid in the candy store playing up all these really nice TVs and this nice audio equipment that I couldn't afford. It was a freaking ball, and I loved it. So this video, this is going to be a long video. I am going to cover TVs, 4K players, receivers, speakers, cables, wires, surge protection, which I almost forgot about, and even simple, cabinet, what you might want to look at. So I will have a timestamp below in the description So if you're only interested in certain parts, if you don't want to watch this whole video, say if you have a TV, good TV in 4K, you're just interested in other stuff, just look in below in the description and see where you want to jump to, and I'll have that for you. So let's kick it off. The first one we're going to talk about is TVs. I'm trying to put this in order to where how you prioritize what you're going to look for, what helps you decide what you want to get. And the first thing, I think the number one question is, what screen size are you going for? From there, do you want to go, are you okay with 4K or do you want 8K? This is going to depend on what you want to watch, because as far as physical media, 4K is it. But there is some stuff that is streamed. They have gone to some 8K content, but there's not a lot out there. Maybe some sports, some stuff. So you need to ask yourself, what are you using your TV for? Are you doing a lot of streaming? Do you want that 8K? Or are you just a movie buff? Then 4K is all you need. There's not going to be much of a difference as far as watching your 4Ks. Now let's get into the type of TVs. Now, looking through different types, your eyes can really glaze over with all this crap that's out there that's available. And I was surprised, like the older stuff, the LCDs, according to what I looked, they said they still make large screen LCDs. I haven't seen them, but according to Google, they still make them. But that's your oldest style that, been around for a long time. I had one for a while. I had a 42-inch from LG that was really nice. And I'm actually going to put these in order. I actually try to, when I did a search, it's like which type is better than the other. So I'm putting these in order from lowest to the best. So the next one up is an LED. That's your next biggest one. Then we jump up to a QLED, which is what I have. Then we have OLED, which is very popular. Which when I got my set, OLEDs were still pretty pricey. We got our TV in 2020, and OLEDs were still, you was looking about $1,500 for a decent one. And I'm like, we just couldn't afford it. So I opted for the QLED, which was still pretty damn good. So next up over the OLED is actually the mini LED. And then we have the micro LED. Sorry. Talking make my throat all scratchy. So that being said, the newest ones, the mini and micro LEDs, those are still pretty pricey. It's probably going to be a while as the prices will start coming down on those as the technology has been out for a while. But so, affordability, I think your OLED is the best way to go right now. They got some really decent price sets at the moment. Now, the next thing you want to ask yourself is the type of HDR. Do you want Dolby Vision? Do you want HDR10 Plus? I'm not going to get into all the technical aspects, but basically your Dolby Vision HDR10 Plus is, they just took the HDR up and bumped it up. They raised the bar a lot for that to give you the more colors and everything else. And everything I've read, the Dolby Vision is just a step above HDR10 Plus. But also, remember, Dolby Vision is more widely accepted by different manufacturers. Compared to HDR10 Plus, it's very limited. There's not a lot of content that has that. So that being said, the HDR is what's going to steer you to what brand you want to go with. If you want the Dolby Vision, majority of everybody has Dolby Vision except Samsung. They refuse to pay those royalties because, basically a company has to pay Dolby Vision to use it. And Samsung has their noses stuck up and think they're better, and they don't want to pay that out. It's like, you're producing thousands and thousands of sets. That's nickel and dime stuff for each set of what it's going to cost. Everyone else is doing it, so why can't you? Which is sad because Samsung puts out a great product. I mean, I am not going to shit you. Yeah, I don't want to say anything bad about that because if you want quality, Samsung has a great set on the market. It's just if you want Dolby Vision, you cannot get Samsung. They developed their own version of it, which is called HDR10 Plus. That was developed by Samsung. Now, if you want both, if you want to cover all bases, there are some sets out there that provide both formats. Panasonic, Philips, LG, and Hisense. They all have sets that have both Dolby Vision and HDR10 Plus. So if you want to cover all your bases, I would stick with those brands, look at what they have, and go back to your other questions of what you're looking for. Where if you just want Dolby Vision, you got a broader range of choices out there for you. Now, a couple other things you might want to look at is specs. Mainly refresh rates, frame rates. Most sets are, 60 hertz or 120 hertz. Basically, what that does is for fast motion content, sports, and gaming. So if you do a lot of gaming, if you do a lot of sports, then you probably want that higher refresh rate for that. But if you're just movies, it's probably not going to play that much of the effect for it. Other thing you might want to look at is the hookups. How are you going to incorporate? How are you going to integrate your TV into your system? Does it have enough inputs? Does it have the proper outputs? Because if you're streaming to the TV, you're going to need to get the audio from the TV to your receiver. So you need to figure out how you're going to do that. And the different options are usually the ARC, which is called the audio return channel, or the EARC, which is enhanced audio return channel. Basically what that is, it's a newer spec that was incorporated into the HDI format to where the HDI cable can carry a signal both ways. The original HDMI cables, certain standards, like the original cables were called 1.4, and every time they upgraded, they upgraded the number. So you need at least a 2.1 or above, which has a higher bandwidth. So the standard ARC has a lower bandwidth, can only carry Dolby Digital, Dolby Digital Plus, and standard DTS. Nothing else. So if you want to carry the Atmos signal from the TV to your receiver, you need the EARC, the Enhanced Audio Return Channel. That has a higher bandwidth, and it'll carry the Dolby Digital, Dolby True HD, Dolby Atmos, DTS-X. So if you're streaming that kind of content and you want that audio to your receiver, you need to have the EARC, which is probably in most of your sets, but just be safe and look for that. Yeah, my set has that, but I could not do that because my receiver is old, so it is not compatible with ARC or EARC. It just has HDMI out and in. So I had to figure out, how do I get my audio from my streaming channels on my TV to my receiver? And luckily it had an optical output. So that's which carries Dolby Digital and DTS, just standard 5.1. So for all my the Roku channels or anything streaming on my TV, the audio goes to my receiver through the optical cable. When my receiver has multiple optical inputs. Again, old school, I don't have Atmos, I just have 5.1, so I didn't need anything more. So that's what worked for me. But for you, if you want the Dolby Atmos, you need to have that audio return channel or the enhanced audio return channel. The next thing for TVs is operating systems. This probably won't mean much for you. I mean, if you're particular want a certain operating system, that might be it. But most TVs have the Android TV and Google TV services. It's compatible with, like I said, most TVs have that. Samsung has their own. It's a priority to them called Tizen OS. LG has a Web OS. It's basically, for LG they created. And of course, then Roku TV, which I think most TVs offer Roku now. In the beginning, when we got our TV, there were some out there that was just starting to be incorporated into a lot of TVs. And of course, you got Amazon Fire TV, then Apple TV. So those is just a broad overview of the different operating systems that they have for TVs. But I think nowadays, because more and more stuff, because of the streaming, no matter what TV you get, I think you're going to be able to get anything you want. But depends on what you want. Just make sure, like if you have Roku, that just double check, make sure your TV has that. Because for me, the two things that were their must-haves for my TV purchase was Dolby Vision and Roku. Now, I had a Roku box, a regular streaming box. I wanted to replace that and eliminate some cables, so that's why I wanted to have a TV with that. So that was the two things that my TV had to have, is Roku and Dolby Vision. So that's basically everything you want to look for a TV. Once you decide what you're looking for, the brand, TV size, and all that, do some online searches, pull up, say, hey, I like this model, jot their model number down, and look for reviews for it. And look for comparisons, why is this model cheaper than this? It looks the same size, same brand. Sometimes there can be certain circuits or components that are different. So when, for me, I was budget minded. I was going for a 65-inch, and I was looking for the TCL, and they had the QLEDs, and they had the Dolby Vision, they had the Roku, but they had the different. They had all the stuff I wanted, but this model was cheaper than this one. So I did some comparisons and found a lot of reviews to find out, why is this one more? And within those reviews, I seen where everyone was recommending getting this one because it was a better quality build, better picture, whatnot. So definitely do your research once you know what you're gonna get, because again, you can pick your brand. They have some great stuff, but they make stuff for the budget minded, but you might have less quality. So do the research and you will get something nice, because I was glad I did that research, because when I got it, I never thought I would buy a freaking TV from Walmart of all places. Because usually when it comes to electronics, I've always told people, don't buy from those stores, go to your electronic stores. But again, budget minded, I went with Walmart, and out of the box, we were freaking blown away. And here it is, 5 years later, it is still a great set. I am very happy with it. Is OLED better? Probably. I've heard so much stuff about OLEDs, but I'm happy with it. We can't afford getting a new TV, so we're stuck with what we have. Next up, we're going to talk about 4K players, which this will be a simpler category. It won't take too much time here. I guess the first thing you want to look at for 4K players is the HDR capabilities, the Dolby Vision HDR10 Plus. Not all the players out there have that. If you want one or the other, there are some cheap ones that don't even have Dolby Vision, but Dolby Vision is widely accepted in most of the stuff now. Now, the companies producing 4K players is vastly shrinking. Oppo got out of it. LG quit doing it. Panasonic quit making them. Or wait a minute, not Panasonic, Samsung. Panasonic's still kicking, but Samsung quit making some players. So as far as standard, standalone, dedicated 4K players, we have Sony, Panasonic, and Magnetar. Now Sony, theirs has even shrunk. When you get on their website, they've eliminated the X7 or X800. The only one on their website is the UBP X700M. That is the only model they have available. So if you see other models on Amazon or other stores, just know that, you know, they aren't made anymore. The X700 is the only one. But if you're looking for a cheap 4K player, the X700 is pretty damn good. We got ours in 2019 before we got our TV, and we got it for a damn good deal. But you know, it had Dolby Vision, no HDR10 plus, but it's been a great player. And the only issue I ever had with it is it would lock up every once in a while, but not often. It was a random thing. It wasn't the disc. And what I learned from other channels, YouTubers out there talking about it, is the cheaper low-end 4K players had issues reading those BD100 discs, which is triple layer disc. For some reason, just those discs, the players would have issues with, and it would like either lock up or it would like pixelate for a few seconds and maybe quit playing, or maybe keep going, pixelate and then come back. But so that's what I learned, is being that X700 was a cheaper model, and that was the only disc. Anytime it locked up and had an issue, I'd look up online and it was a BD100 disc. And over time, I started getting gradually doing it more and more. And there was times when it would lock up. It would lock up to the point where the remote would be locked out. I couldn't even power it down. I'd literally have to go back to the back of the unit, unplug it, plug it back in, get it reset, then it would work. But then it would work fine. The disc, and that disc, again, it wouldn't be a disc, because sometimes that disc might do it once. The next time I put it in, it would work fine. Or it would work fine one time, the next time it wouldn't work. So it was a random thing with that player and that triple layer disc. Again, it just got worse over time. And last year, it was just every week, at least once every week, I was having to unplug the damn thing. And it was really pissing me off. And I was like, we need a new player. So come tax time this year, I started looking, I was like, I'm going with a Panasonic. Which leads us into the next brand, Panasonic. They still have 6 models on their page to choose from. The cheaper models don't have the Dolby Vision, but they do have a couple models. I think they have 3 models that have Dolby Vision and HDR10 plus. And those 3 models that do have both formats is the brand new 450. It was released overseas a year or two ago, and it just hit the US this year, I think. And then the 820, which has been out for a little while, and then the 9000, which is the pricey high-end model. It basically just has a sturdier build, the more metal chassis, more metal than plastic. So if you want a big, heavier build quality, that is what you're going to go for. But again, it's really pricey. I forget what the cost is. I'll pop it up on the screen for you. But the next step down is the 820, which is what I got. I'm sure the 450 that just came out, spec-wise, looking at numbers, the 450 and 820 are almost identical as far as what you're getting. But in my mind, because of my issues with my X700, is like, okay, I can get this 450 for $200. Am I going to have the same issues going by a cheaper player? I was afraid of that. After all the issues I have with this X700, I'm not going with another $200 player. I'm gonna spend the extra money and get something better. So I went with the 820, and I lucked out. I ordered it. I forget what it was, how much it was. It was just over $400. And right after I ordered it, then like the next day, the price dropped $20 to $30. Like, fuckers. So I got on Amazon. I was chatting with someone. They refused to do a price match, or saying, oh, we can't do anything about that. So I was like, wait a minute. It has not shipped yet. So I canceled the order, reordered at the same the lower price, and paid the lower price and got it, and then got the refund for the original order. So there's always, there's more than one way to skin a cat. If you order something and the price drops, and if it hasn't shipped, cancel the order, reorder. That's how you do it. But anyways, I've had the 820 for about 3 months now. I have had no issues with any BD100 disc whatsoever. And another thing that improved from the X700 was with the 4K format, the HDR will cranks up the contrast and will make stuff look a little darker to give it a more richer look, give it more depth. But the downside of that is sometimes it can make things look too dark. So this will depend on your TV and your 4K player. I did have a couple 4Ks that were way too dark in certain scenes, and I did reviews on those, and that was a 4K of Twister and Indiana Jones and a Dial of Destiny. There were certain scenes in those two movies that the 4Ks were so freaking dark you couldn't make out anything, and that the Blu-ray looked better. But when thinking it was the 4K format or the disc, it was actually the player. Now, the Panasonic, those two discs I put in there, those scenes were still dark, but I can make stuff out much better. So that being said, that's something else to look at as far as looking at players, is how they handle those blacks. You might want to spend the extra money to be able to handle those blacks a little bit better. But at the same, like I said, it's not a big issue because I have over 600 4Ks, and I can count on one hand how many 4Ks that look too dark. I know of, I think, 4 maybe. So it's not a big issue. So if you've got a cheaper TV, you definitely want a good, better player. Now, the last brand we're going to talk about is Magnetar. This is going to be for the home enthusiast that if you have money to burn and you want top notch, if you want build quality, and you're saying, screw it, here, take my money, I want this. Magnetar, they've got 2 models out there. They have Dolby Vision and HDR10 Plus. But here's the kicker. Their low-end model is $1,600. Their expensive model is $3,000. So again, if you've got money to burn, if you want that build quality, you want top notch, that would be the way to go. But I don't have money to throw away, so I'm never going to be getting Magnetar. But if you do, I'm going to give them a look. I mean, they look like some really nice units. I've seen the reviews online. They say they're pretty damn good. So that wraps it up for the standalone, 4K players that are dedicated, for 4Ks, nothing else. But you do have 2 other options if you want 4Ks, if you're a gamer. The PS5 and the Xbox Series X. Both those gaming systems do play 4K. I've heard they're pretty decent quality, so if you're a gamer, that is an option for you. So I just want to throw that out there. But yeah, so definitely those are the things you'll want to look at as far as 4K players. So next up, we've got receivers. This is going to be a lengthy discussion because there's a lot of things to look at, because the receiver is the heart of the system. Everything runs through your receiver. All your components go into that, go to your TV before it goes to the TV. So yeah, this is where you do want to spend quite a bit of money. You want quality here, and there's a lot of things to look into as far as what you want to get, how much you want in your system, what you're going to be using it for. Now, some names I'm going to throw out there are Denon, Yamaha, Sony, Onkyo, Marantz. Those are some of your mainstream brands. There are some other ones that out there that are more boutique companies that are you're going to be spending. You better have a freaking deep wallet for. Well, even these mainstream ones, they got some pretty pricey units. But again, the stuff I'm going to go over to help you decide what you're going to look for. So every brand has a full range of models to choose from. Lower end stuff. Depending on how many channels you have. What you want and what you want it to do. And then they have their flagship models that you need your freaking deep wallets for. So it's nice these companies do cater to a lot of people. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of the video that my first two receivers were Harman Kardon. They still make stuff, but they do not make receivers anymore, which is a shame because the quality of their build, they were freaking incredible. I loved Harman Kardon. But once I upgraded to high def, I seen they didn't make them anymore. So I went with a Denon. And here you can see the back of my Denon. There's a lot of freaking hookups on it because I had a lot in my system that I wanted to hook up. It has the HDMIs, it has the optical inputs, it had standard analog hookups, the component hookups. I mean, it had everything. I don't think there was anything missing off this receiver. Because my system was pretty complex. I had a lot of stuff. I had my old PS2. Yes, PS2. I still have it. Had a Laserdisc player. I had my Super Audio CD player. I had 6-channel outputs. So my receiver had to have the 6-channel inputs for it. So it was equipped for everything at the time. Again, like I said, this was 5.1, didn't have a digital plus, so it didn't have the extra channels to it. So that's one of the big things you'll want to look at is, what does your system have? How many things are you going to be hooking up? You need to look on the back of the receiver to see if it can accommodate all that stuff. Like HDMI inputs, mine being older, it only had 3 inputs to it. And because of the stuff I had more than 3 HDMI sources. So I was like, fuck. So I had a little separate HDMI switcher box at that time. Since then, I've eliminated some things, so I don't have that anymore. But most new receivers have at least 5 to 8 HDMI inputs. And sometimes at least 1 output, sometimes 2 for multiple TVs. So you should be good for that if you're getting something newer. But if you're buying an older model, definitely look to make sure that it has everything you want to hook up in your system. Which kind of rolls into the next thing is make sure the receiver can up-convert any signal to HDMI. Mine does. I think most of them will do it. So if you have older, like say if you've got an older VCR or cable or whatnot, if you got something that's regular analog that's going into the receiver and you want it to go to the TV without extra cables, make sure the receiver can up-convert. So what that does is say you can have all this shit going into the receiver and have 1 cable from the receiver to the TV. If not, then you have to have those other things going to the TV as well, which can complicate things. So again, I boils down, what do you have in your system? What do you want to hook up? Can the receiver up-convert all the analog signals to HDMI? And do the HDMI hookups compatible with I talked about with the TVs have an audio return channel. So your receiver should have that. Being newer receivers, they should. I haven't seen any, even the cheaper ones. I don't think any of them don't have it. But just double check if you want that audio from the TV through HDMI. Again, my receiver doesn't do it, but they should have. But double check, make sure. Next up is to look at the audio formats. doesn't have Dolby Atmos and DTS:X. Again, if it's a newer receiver, it's almost a standard on everything. But if you get a cheaper model or something that's been out for a while, if you're buying something used or a late model, you might not get it. So if you want that, definitely look at that. That's definitely a big selling point. Next up would be the wattage, how many watts per channel. Basically, nowadays, because once they became the Dolby Digital, people started using full range speakers for the surrounds and not bookshelves. Because with Dolby Pro Logic, the frequency range, they only sent a little bit of signal to the surround. You didn't get the full bandwidth. 20 hertz on up to 20,000 hertz. They didn't get that full range. But once it went to Dolby Digital, you started getting a full bandwidth. So you wanted full range speakers for the surrounds. So most receivers now have the same amount of wattage to every speaker, because you don't want to have 100 watts front and 50 watts in the back if you got big ones in the back. So again, most speakers have the same wattage. You want to look at that. And you don't need megawatts of power to power a home theater anymore, because most speakers, the general consumer, we'll get to the speakers here in a bit, but most speakers are pretty efficient that don't take a lot of power. So even like 100 and 125 watts a channel is going to be more than enough for a standard system. Now, if you're building a home cinema and want to freaking blow your mind and shake your house, then you might want to go for a little bit more wattage, but you shouldn't need it for the general consumer. So that will help you decide, what kind of speakers are you going to have, looking at the amount of wattage you're going to have, how the speakers are rated. Again, they're very efficient. They don't take a lot of power. Because even my older system, when I upgraded, when I still had my Harman Kardon, I want to say I was only getting like 80 watts a channel, and I was powering this big Klipsch speakers, and they freaking rocked. So you get a nice efficient speaker. You don't need that high power, because a lot of times those receivers might underestimate the, especially Harman Kardons. They say they had this much of power, but you were getting more out of it. So definitely do your research and, decide on how much power you want. Which leads up to the next topic for receivers, is using the receiver to power the speakers, or if you're pure, so if you want the most out of your system, you can have an external amplifier to power your speakers, which is what I did. What that does is, if you have the room shelf space for separate components, this will take the strain off the receiver, because remember when you're powering all these speakers, if you're pushing your system a lot, that can put a lot of strain on your receiver and create a lot of heat. You maybe overheat as well. So if you're that type of person like me that wants to push the system once in a while, you might want to have an external power amplifier for your speakers. Now, if that's the case, that is another thing you need to look at for a receiver, because you need a receiver that has the what is called pre-outputs. Your cheaper models will not have the pre-outs, because you're powering the speakers from the receiver. But if you want to use an external amplifier, you need a pre-outs, which you will see here on the image is circled, has a setup, on mine, which is only, 5 channels going out. And just an RCA jack that just sends a signal unpowered to the power amplifier. So again, mine only has 5. So if you're having Dolby Atmos and you got, 5, 7 speakers, and plus your overhead speakers for Atmos, you're going to want to have the amount of channels that accommodate that. So if you think you're going to be one that wants to have an external power amplifier, make sure the receiver has enough pre-outputs for that reason. But if you just if you're a basic person, you're okay with having a receiver do the power, then you don't need a pre-out. So your cheaper models you'll be okay with, but definitely keep that in mind. Now, the last thing to talk about for receivers is the actual speaker terminals on the back of the receiver. Now, majority of the receivers you can see pictured here and have circled is what's called binding posts, and which allows you to hook up speaker wire multiple ways. These will accept simple banana plugs, which is the easiest way to connect speaker wire. Which, you have a banana plug, you just plug it in, you're done. Or you actually unscrew it and put in a spade or their bare wire, which I go over that in a separate video about the cables and wires. But yeah, most receivers like this, you're going to have binding posts, which will accommodate your big speaker wire. Now, if you get a very, very low-end model, it's going to have just little clips. You can see here, I took a picture online, and these are a pain in the ass. So if you have cheap speaker wire, you got to push in a little button to open up the receptacle and put the wire in that way. That is your cheapest option. You do not want this. So just make sure the receiver you're choosing has the binding post. That is the way to go. Again, most receivers have these now. Now, the next category we have is the speakers. This is another thing where, you want some pretty damn good speakers, and there is a lot out there to choose from. I'll name off a few that I would recommend, but there's a lot out there. It'll depend on, we'll go through everything that I'll lean you toward or what you want to go for. But, my favorite personally is Klipsch. They have some kick-ass speakers, and I've had mine for ages. I had multiple brands, styles, and each time I kept getting bigger and bigger into what I have today. But you can see here, I have the Klipsch, the KLF 30s. These were called at the time, they were called the Legends. So when you ever hear Klipsch Legends, this is the one you're talking about. These were, at the time, these were the rock, they were labeled as the rock and roll speaker to have. And I can see why, because I've had mine. I bought mine used in 2004. I've had mine for 21 years, and they are still kicking. Admittedly, there's a few drivers that need replaced because I've abused the piss out of them, but they've held out. But yeah, I guess some distortion on a couple, and I need to replace some drivers. Hopefully next year I'm going to do that. But outside Klipsch, you got JBLs, B&Ws. Oh man, they're high-end stuff. They got some great product out there. Paradigm, they got kick-ass speakers for home theater. Polk Audio, I've had a couple Polk Audios. They weren't too bad. They have a big name. They got some really nice stuff on the market. There are others out there. I would stay away from some of the other brand names like Sony. As good of an electronic company as they are, speaker-wise, they don't cut it. I'm sorry. If you want good speakers, stay away from Sony. They're shit. Bose, crap. Bose are good for what they are. If you want a nice sounding little speaker, yeah, they're good. But if you want a kick-ass home theater, Bose sucks. I'm sorry, they cannot handle what you're going to want to put through them. And Bose don't even make big tower speakers anymore. They did it one time. I remember one time I was Southern Alabama. I was on a roller coaster trip. I stopped into this little outlet center, and they had a Bose outlet store. And I was like, oh, what the hell? Let's go in here and check this out. And they had floor-standing Bose speakers. I did not even know they existed. This was back in the late 90s, so they don't make them anymore. So I was like, that was pretty cool. I don't know how long they made them, but yeah, they don't exist anymore. Even if they did, they probably wouldn't be able to handle what your home theater would put out. And there's some brand names out there. If you've got money to blow, if you want to spend a lot, there is some stuff out there that will rock your socks off. But even the ones I did mention, they'll blow your mind. The B&Ws, they have some cheaper models, and they have some very expensive ones. I'm going off tangent here, but I just want to talk about this one time I went to a special audio video store, and I was demoing some B&Ws, and the pair I was listening to was about $3,000 for the set, and they were freaking awesome. I was just sitting here, and then I started seeing off to the corner. I was like, "Ooh, I want to kind of hear these," because I knew what they were, and they were like about $20,000, and they actually had them on display to demo. And I finally asked the guys, like, "Can I hear these?" He goes, "Sure, let me get the amp and everything warmed up." Because the power of those, you had to have some serious equipment. And they had, there's this electronic company called Krell. And if you don't know anything about home audio, if you see the name Krell, you're going to pay for it. But they have some awesome stuff. And they had a CD player that was like about $15,000. The amplifier was, I want to say, another 10 to 15 grand. Or maybe the CD player was $5, and I can't remember because this was a long time ago. But yeah, he fired those puppies up and put some music in. And I'm just sitting back going, I wish I was rich. I would have those puppies in my freaking home. But they were like about, I would say about 4 or 5 foot tall. I think they were from the Nautilus line. And yeah, there is some high-end stuff out there if you want for your home audio. But my audience out there probably is more low budget like me. But if you do have some money to spend, there's stuff out there. But so I've rambled on a little bit there. Sorry. But so basically, I guess the first question for you before you buy speakers is, how you're going to use them. Is it just for movies, your home theater, or do you listen to a lot of music? The reason I ask that is because some of the speakers out there can't handle both. They might be good for music, but not good for movies, or vice versa. They could be great for movies, but not good for music. It all depends on the range of what you want out of the system. And I was very nitpicky because I love music. I want high quality music. But at the same time, I want to rock my house for movies. And one of the brands, Paradigm. I know this from experience with setting up that audio video store. When it comes to home theater, Paradigm rocks. They are freaking awesome. They will blow your mind. But for music, they were kind of flat. They didn't provide a good music quality. B&Ws I talked about, they are great for music. For movies, they just might not have the punch. Their high-end stuff might. But, they're mainly for music. So I would recommend, for me, like, again, I'm biased because I've had Klipsch for years. They utilize horns. Once you become accustomed to hearing horns, they can be a little bit brighter, which sometimes you want to have. You want that clarity. You want to hear those crystal clear highs, but also you want that mid range and that low end. So again, once you hear horns, nothing else is the same. And I've become accustomed to those horns. I freaking love horns. So that's why if I get another speaker, it's got to have horns. JBL does have horns in their speakers. Not all of them, but some of your good ones. So definitely look at JBL as well. They got some great stuff on the market. So I think from my opinion, I would steer you to Klipsch or JBLs because of the horns. Again, both companies have low-end models and high-end models, depending on what you want. And some of the high-end stuff, they'll have the big woofers mounted like sideways to provide bass without making have a lot of floor space. Which kind of rolls into the next question is, do you want large speakers or small speakers? What kind of setup do you want? I mean, what kind of room do you have? How much are you going to be using it? If you're a simple person that wants a good theater, but you don't want to shake the house, or say if you've got if you have a family and you don't, there's not a chance you're going to be having it loud all the time, you might be okay with small bookshelf speakers and a good sub. Well, we'll get to the sub part later, so that's the next thing you want to ask yourself is if it's a home theater, if you want to have large or small. If you're, there's a lot of great books. This comes of bookshelf speakers. There's a lot of good stuff out there. Even the brands that the Klipsch and JBLs, they got some great stuff I would recommend. Next up, when you're choosing, one thing you got to remember is the mains, the front, left, and right, and the center channel, which is your dialogue. It is very important that the center is matched to the mains. What that means is the type of circuitry when they build them, and it can be the same brand. I could have Klipsch mains and a center, but if they're not matched, it could be off because you want a nice, well balance across your front soundstage. When you hear things going to left and right, you want to have where, if it's matched, it's utilizing the same tweeters or mid-range drivers in all three speakers. So that is a very important thing that you want, because when I was upgrading my system over the years, I was mix matching the centers, and even though the center channel was very good, it wouldn't match. I could tell, and once I matched them, I could tell there was it improved it. So the center and mains have to be matched as far as the tweeters and mid-range horns in it. So keep that in mind when you're choosing them. Now the surrounds, not so much. You could get away with having unmatched surrounds. It's not as big of a deal. I mean, you would want to have a match, because of the way it goes from front to back, but it's not as important as left to right and center. So surrounds, you can get away with not matching those, but you would want to if you're critical. So next up is subwoofers. Now this is going to depend on what kind of speakers you have for the rest of the system. Because if you have large speakers for the mains and the surrounds like I do, you may not need a subwoofer. And I mean, some people out there might say, oh, you have to have a subwoofer for those low-end effects. It may add a little bit, but if you've got some kick-ass if your speakers can provide a lot of bass, which mine do, I don't need a sub. Because I shake the shit out of my house with my speakers because, again, these are large cabinets. Has a tweeter horn, mid-range horn, and two 12-inch woofers in each cabinet. So each one of those cabinets provides a lot of bass, and you figure I got 4 of these puppies. Now, I did have subwoofers when I lived back in Ohio. I had the room for them. I had 2 custom subs. But even without them, like here in the house, I don't have room for the subwoofers. So I just have the mains, and I shake the shit out of my house. So this will depend on what kind of speakers you have. So if you do want a subwoofer in your system, the first thing you want to ask is, do you want There are two types of subwoofers out there: the powered subs or non-powered. Majority of them, I'd say 90% of the subwoofers out there are all powered. It gets a signal, powers it, and that's it. It's done. But if you're like me that had a custom subwoofer, I needed the power. So, there's some custom stuff out there that you can get. So, but if you're buying a regular market subwoofer, it's going to be powered most likely. Now, for powered subwoofers, there's two types out there. There's side firing and down firing. There's a lot of them that are down side firing with the ports, that has the ports going down. To me, in my opinion, you're not gonna get the most out of it because of it's gonna go into your walls and it can provide a lot of bass, but at the same time, it could provide a lot of rumbling and rattling that you might not want. I'm a person, I don't want to hear the bass. I want to feel it. I want it to hammer me. So I like the downward firing where it goes into the floor and you're going to feel it. And again, this is going to depend on the placement, where you're going to have the sub. So there's a lot of things to consider what you want, which type you want. But again, I like the downward firing. I can feel it more. When I had my custom sub, it was behind the couch, and when it hit, it felt like someone was freaking hitting the back of the couch. And I was like, damn, it was kind of kicking me off the couch. It was freaking awesome. So again, that's my recommendation, downward firing. It goes into the floor. You're going to feel a little bit more. Again, where it's going to be placed is going to, determining factor. Here, I mentioned I had custom subs. Here's pictures of mine. This is crazy. They're coffins. These are literally real antique coffins, wooden coffins that I bought from an antique store. And I had one of them. You can see here the picture. I took two pictures and sliced them together. I took them to the dealer and I was like, hey, can you build me a subwoofer out of this? And he was like, why not? He put 3 12-inch woofers in them and set them up to be powered, like 1.5 channel. It's kind of weird how he set it up, but it made it work as left channel powers 1.5 speaker and a right channel powers the other 1.5. So 2 channels is driving 3 speakers. Kind of weird, but it worked. So after he did that one, here's the next. I bought another coffin and I took it to him. I was like, here, do another one. So here's what it looks like. From the top, he actually refinished it. And then the bottom underneath, you can see, again, he took 3 12-inch woofers and put in them. And again, he split them up. So 2 channels powers all 3. So to power both, I actually had both of these hooked up when I lived in Ohio. So I freaking had 6 12-inch subs in my system. And I just went out and I bought another 5-channel amp, and I was using 4 channels to power both subs, and they freaking kicked ass. But again, I'm not using them now, plus they got damaged in the move, but my room setup, I don't have the room for them. But I just want to show those off, give you some ideas of if you're someone that wanted something, custom, you could do it. You can do something crazy, which I did. Now, beyond subwoofers, there's something else out there you might want to try. If you want to go crazy and feel a lot of bass, they are called tactile transducers, or also known as bass shakers. They've used them in cars, and now they use them in home theaters. And they're just little, you can see here, they're really small units that mount. You can either mount them to the bottom of your chair, pull your chair up and mount them to your framework, the wood framework, to your chair. And they work like a regular speaker. They have terminals that you run a speaker wire into. and it works like a regular subwoofer, but it just provides a more the low end bass. I have never tried these. I've read a lot about them, and you can also if not just if you've got a home cinema, you could probably go as far as building attaching these underneath your floorboards into the framework of your room to get a lot of bass. So if you want to go freaking crazy, I would recommend trying these out. Now, the downside is that being external, you need some power. You need to get an external power amplifier to power these. So you would need to know the power wattage that these would need. Now, if I was you, here's a set I would recommend. This is from Denon Audio. This is on Amazon. You can get you get two bass shakers with the amplifier. So for one price, you get two of these and an amplifier. This would be if you're thinking about doing this, I would recommend going this route. So you can just get the amplifier put up on the shelf and run the speaker wire to these and put them underneath your couch or whatever seat you have. But yeah, if you want a lot of bass, this is definitely an option you might want to try. So that pretty much wraps it up for the speaker portion. Again, there is a lot of choices out there. And I would recommend, personally, again, I'm biased to Klipsch. I would recommend going with them. And again, if you want to try something else, JBLs, depends on what you want, music or movies and what you listen to. There's a lot to choose from, but those are the ones I would recommend. I've got tons of links below to check out. Click on them as far as going to their direct pages, look at their speakers, jot down some model numbers, then go to Amazon, Best Buy, or, do some shopping around, see what you want to go to. So the next topic up now is cables and wires. The reason I bring this up is a lot of people are going to overlook this. This is a very important part of your home theater system that, again, you might not think about. You can have a kick-ass high-end TV, kick-ass receiver, kick-ass speakers. And if you've got some crappy-ass cables and wires, you're not getting the most out of it. You might as well be throwing that money out the door. From experience, back when this was when I lived in a trailer, and as I was building my system, and I knew that I had tons of cables. This was before HDMI, so my home theater was a massive wiring nightmare because, again, I had all these components. I had a couple cassette decks, a CD player, had an EQ and a game. I had tons of shit hooked up to my system. So I went out and I rewired the entire thing all at once, and I spent like about $1,100 or $1,200 on brand new cables and new speaker wire, and it made a difference. And whenever friends would come over and we did movie days at my home, they'd come over and they'd be blown away. They were like, I remember there was this one movie, I can't remember what it was, that like someone was inside the home and you can hear someone like pull up and park outside and hear the door. And my friend was like, was someone here? He thought someone was in the movie. Another thing, the movie Independence Day on Laserdisc. You don't get this on 4K. This is something I griped about with a 4K review. But on Laserdisc, the opening scene, when there was panning across the surface of the moon, and you could see the sand shifting on Laserdisc, you could hear it. You could hear the sand shifting. It was that nuance. You don't get that on 4K. For some reason, they fucked up the audio on a 4K. You do not get that. But the Laserdisc, you did have that. And it was mind-boggling. My friend, we were just sitting there watching, and we're like, you can hear that sand shifting. That was crazy. So yes, wires and speaker wire, very important. You do not want to cut costs there. Now, I am not going to, there is a lot to go through when it comes to cables and wires. So I'm not going to go through all of it. Please, I got a link below. I did a video of this a year, 2 years ago. And if you want to know all about speaker wire and cables, go to that video, watch that, know what you want, because you don't want to cut corners, because the speaker wire that they might sell you might be good, but I recommend something else. Get the most out of the system. And in that video, I'll tell you what I got, what I recommend, different prices you can pay, and you can pay a lot. Luckily, I'm not rich. I can't tell you if $1,000 cable is better than a $50 cable. I can't tell you that. But I would spend a little bit on it, but I would not skimp out on cables and wires. Just, again, watch the video. That is a very important video to get the most out of. Next up is a topic I almost forgot about: surge protection. I just thought about this 2 days ago. As I was putting all my notes together, I thought I was done. I was like, oh shit, surge protection. That's the next most important thing in your home theater. Is like, if you're spending thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars on a home theater, you'll want to protect it. As far as if you have power surges, lightning strikes, that would suck. You got all this money wrapped up in your system, all of a sudden you have a power surge and shit, you blow something, you want to protect it. So there's a lot of stuff out there. I'll just go over this kind of briefly. Stuff I would recommend. There's a lot of surge protectors that have the outlets. They also have surge protection for phone lines, Ethernet, and cable, coax cables. So you can provide surge protection for that. I wouldn't cut corners. Go for something decent. Monster, they're a big name in home audio. They do cables, wires, and also all kinds of surge protectors, the strips, the wall mounts, the little blocks. So there's lots of choices there. I've never used any. Well, I might have used one. I can't remember how. I've used a lot of different surge protectors for different things over the years. And next up, we got Panasonic. They do a lot of home theater stuff. And again, they have standard strips, shelf racks, blocks, shelf units that actually looks like an actual component. And also shelf where they mount onto a rack. They got blocks. And I've never used any of theirs. I planned on it one time. I just never got around to it. Here's 3 different ones I'm going to show you. Different. The cheapest model I'll throw up here is a shelf unit, sits up on your shelf, and everything plugs into the back. And you can see here it has the Ethernet and phone line as well, and it shows how many things you can plug into it. And the next model up here, you can see the price here. You got a couple extra outlets to hook up to, and you can see the price as well. And then the third one here, has a little bit more you can hook up to it, and you can see the price as well. So price-wise, those, when you're considering if you're spending thousands of dollars on a home theater, spending $300 or $400 for this type of surge protector, it's not bad, in the grand scheme of things. Plus, they claim to have a $5 million warranty. So if you lose stuff, they're supposed to cover it. I don't know the fine print, but yeah, they're a big name in surge protection. Again, check out their site. Look at all the different stuff they have. Now, next up is a company I actually use. It's called Triplite. And just like the other brands, they have the block, power blocks. They have standard surge protectors, and also they have these strips. You'll see here, this is what I use. And these come in, depends on how many outlets you want. and how long the cord is. I mean, if you only want to plug 4 things in, they have little small ones and small cord lengths. So they have a wide variety. I use these for my home theater, my computers. I use these for both my computer setups. Never had an issue with them. And they're, when looking at them here again, they're easy to hook up. They come with 2 little clips. You just do the measuring. I think they actually came with a template. And you would just mount the 2 little clips on the wall, and you just push the whole thing, clip it right onto the wall, and there it is. These are really nice. They have multiples to choose from. Just how much stuff you want to plug into it, and how long of a cord length you need. You're gonna find. I mean, go on Amazon and Walmart. They have all types of things to choose from. Last but not least is your entertainment center cabinets. This will depend on basically it boils down to what you want to see. Cosmetic looks, there'll be some functionality to it. How many shelves, how many things you gotta have. And a big thing is you have to keep in mind, if you get a cabinet that has glass doors, which is great if you want to protect from having to dust off stuff a lot. But remember, some components put off a lot of heat. So when using, you need to have the doors open, and that can create a problem sometimes depending on where you're situated. Doors can get hit and knocked and busted. Your 4K players put off a little bit of heat, some. Receivers, a lot of heat there. And if you got external power amplifier, massive amount of heat there. So keep that in mind. You have to have that airflow, because if things start overheating and they can start shutting down, like my amplifier, everything is open. But if I'm really pushing it, there's been a couple of times it has heat sinks on it to help dissipate heat. But I've had channels literally cut off because it was overheating. And I literally when I was watching Top Gun Maverick one time, I had it cranked up really loud, and it was freaking rocking the place. And all of a sudden, I think 2 of the channels were kicking out. So it was kicking off and on as it was resetting. So I finally paused the movie. I actually had a fan. I turned onto it, let it cool for a few minutes, and it worked fine after that. So yeah, airflow, very important. So think about that with what you're getting. You need to have, if you get something with doors, they need to be open for that reason. You can see here, I don't have this anymore. This was when I lived in Ohio. My friends dubbed this the entertainment wall. This entertainment center was custom built for me. It was 2 pieces. I had a base unit and a top unit. And what I did is I measured my door. This is when I lived in a trailer. I measured a door and then measured the inside from the floor to the ceiling. So it went, I think this thing was like this far from my ceiling, but it wouldn't fit through the door. So I measured a door. So I had it built in 2 pieces. He built the base unit and then built the rest of it. We slid it barely. It was a hell of a, it had like this much room on the side going through the doorway. Got into my trailer and set this puppy up. Had all these shelves on it for the racks. And you can see in a picture, all the shelves weren't in place. It was as I was building stuff. And the middle part was, I didn't have my big screen yet. It was built to accommodate a 42-inch TV. And once I did get it, it did fit in there. So if you want a nice cabinet, there's definitely, there's a lot to buy out there that would accommodate. But if you're someone like me that wanted something really nice, I spent I want to say close to $2,000 I have this built, because this was all oak veneer. Solid. I still have the shells. When I moved to Kansas, or wrecked the U-Haul, so the entertainment center got demolished. It did not hold up at all. But the shelves, I still have all the shelves in storage. If I ever have something, I can reuse them because they're solid oak veneer. But that out of that wreck, that was the thing I missed the most. That was my love. That was a piece of me, and I cried when I lost that thing. So yeah, the cabinet, again, it's gonna come down to what you want to see, what functionality, because a lot of my TV stand actually came with a bracket on the back to mount a TV, and it's rated up to, I forget how much it was, but it holds my 65-inch with no problem. I think it'll hold. I forget how much it'll hold. So depending on what your type of TV you have, look at that. If you're buying a stand, uh, if you're going to have a TV mounted, what it can accommodate. So that's something to keep in mind. If you get a rack, or if you actually go the route of having a custom, stand built. So yeah, there's a lot of choices there. But again, cosmetic, what you want to get. So that pretty much does it for my building a home theater video. I hope some of this would help you out, steer you in the right direction of what you're looking for. What got me thinking about doing this video was Ken over at Mid-Level Media. He's talked about this before. He reviews stuff all the time, but he doesn't have a home theater. He has he talks about having an OLED and a sound bar and a subwoofer. And he wants to invest in home theater sometime. So that got me thinking, like, maybe I can help him out. Maybe some of you out there in the same boat. You got into the whole 4K kick. You got a nice player, you got a nice TV, and you got a sound bar, because a lot of places are selling, get a sound bar. It's all you need. You don't need this home audio system. Bullshit. You're not going to get, a sound bar is not going to deliver what a home theater setup can do. So if you've got that TV and a sound bar, you need a home theater setup. I know it's expensive. There's a wide range of pricing here. So that's why I thought I'd, go over all this stuff. I could help you get started, steer you in the right direction. This is what you want to look for. And help, do some research. So when you go to an audio store like Best Buy or someone, that they don't sell you something you don't want. Some people are like that. They go in and they want to look at one thing and they'll be sold another. That happened to my best friend. One time he was looking to get a new receiver, and I was like, I helped him. I went online, helped him. I picked out something. We chose an Onkyo, a model, and I said, "Here, go tell Lynn this is what you want. He don't carry it, but he'll order it for you." And he didn't do it. He come home with a Yamaha, because that's what Lynn carried. I mean, again, Yamaha is a good brand. I wasn't into it because they have a lot of bells and whistles that wasn't needed, and sure enough, he sold Randy a Yamaha. That's what he brought home. But it was a kick-ass receiver, don't get me wrong. But I just want to steer you in the right direction, know what you want. So if you do, say if maybe you go to a local store and they carry a certain brand and you're not sure what to get, look at the different things and help do some more online, have your questions you want to ask. Does it have this? Does this model have that? So I'm hoping this video will help you out. I know it's a long video if you've needed to watch everything. Again, the cables and wires category, the link is below. If you want to, you need to have good cables and wires. So I highly stress watching that video and check that out, because I have a link to that as well, where I bought my speaker wire, because I used heavy gauge speaker wire that most people don't have, It costs a little bit more, but there's damn good shit out there. And also there's tons of links below for the different receivers to look at, speaker brands where you can choose some different things, look at different models, what you want to get. Tons of speaker links below as well. And there's all, again, if you want some other high-end stuff, just do a Google search on high-end speakers. You can find all kinds of stuff. If you want, you can spend, you know, several $1,000s on one speaker. If that's the way you roll, there's stuff out there for it. But if you want some budget-minded stuff, yeah, the stuff I've recommended, definitely check them out. Whether it's large or small speaker, and again, there's just so much out there. I just want to help steer people in the right direction, get you started. Because when you think, if you don't have a home theater, it's like, where do I go? Where do I start? I go to Best Buy and they sell me this whole package deal, and then a few months down the road, you're like, man, I could have done better. I mean, I just spent this money, now I'm going to have to upgrade. So I want to help you avoid needing to upgrade. I want to get you out of the gate running, get you the right setup to where you're going to be happy from the start. So please comment below. Let me know what you think of this video, how this helped. If I was too long-winded on anything, are you someone that was building from scratch, or are you looking to upgrade, you know, just the audio part of it? Did this help you out? Please, I want to know if this was helpful, because this was a very long video to do. This is going to take a while to edit, but I hope this helps you out, because I just wanted to share my love of home theater, you know, movies. Again, I've been in home theater for 31 years. Even before home theater, I mean, I was watching, you know, VHS. I still enjoyed movies and home theater that way. But as far as home theater, yeah, 1994 is when I started. So yeah, I've got a lot of experience I wanted to share with you. I love it. And every time something new comes out, I wanted to get. I want Dolby Atmos, but I don't have the setup. I don't have the room for it, for a setup. So I'm happy with a 5.1, or, well, actually, you know, again, I don't have subs. So actually I have a 5.0 system, but it kicks ass. I mean, I could probably piss off the neighbors if I wanted to, but I'm pretty good so far. I haven't heard any complaints. So yeah, again, I wanted to do this video for several months now. Glad to finally get it done. I hope you enjoyed it. Check out my other videos on my channel. Like, subscribe, turn your bell notifications on, and we'll see you soon. Geek out.